And Audacity in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Barbell Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Lynn, and I'm here with my co-host, Marissa Roy. And in today's episode, we have a very special guest with us. We have my assistant coach, Mariah, and we're going to be jumping into a super fun topic today, which I feel like is pretty highly requested, at least from my clients. I don't know about you, Marissa, but
definitely not from my clients.
Oh. Well, I think maybe just because of the clientele that we have now, we have a little bit more of like a mom base. So we definitely have people who want to get a better handling on how to fitness and everything while also being a mom.
Yeah. And mom at the same time. No, it's not highly requested because I think they just know I don't have like the firsthand input on it, but I have a ton of moms, so I will be able to speak on them, but not on personal experience. So no, but Mariah, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience? And I mean, you're Christina's assistant coach, but I mean, tell us all a little bit about yourself. I feel like even I'm curious to just know more about you too.
Okay. My name is Mariah. I currently don't have a hometown, but my husband is in the military and he's currently deployed. So I am traveling around. Our stuff is in storage and I'm just kind of seeing family and friends and staying with everyone. I first got started in the fitness industry. I actually moved to California with my husband and boyfriend at the time, and he was super into the whole bodybuilding thing, eating chicken, broccoli, rice, and ate super clean. So it was a struggle to get started. I snuck off often and got donuts and McDonald's and was pushing against starting to eat healthy, but finally gave in, started working out, reached out to Christina, did bodybuilding shows, and now am learning where I'm going to go from there as a new mom. So
yeah, that's awesome. I think it's so funny, you know, you had all that resistance against eating healthy and like getting started because of like how you perceived it to be. And I feel like that holds so many people back. Like I was literally talking to someone yesterday who was like wanting to start on a program, but he was pretty much like could not conceptualize the idea of a workout being like 30 to 45 minutes. He was like, I have to be in the gym for 2 hours. Like if I'm in the gym. And I was like, oh my God, you don't like literally the time adds up to be the same. Like, do you want to go once a week or 4 times a week? Right. So it's like, it's crazy the things that can like hold us back from like what we think we know is right about fitness. Right.
Yes.
Cool. Yes. Well, yeah, let's dive into the topic.
Yeah. So Mariah is a first-time mom. So she's got a 10-month-old Hudson who we are watching on the baby monitor right now as we speak. So I think it's very fitting for what we're going to dive into today. But yeah, so I guess I don't really know where exactly when we want to start, or if you want to talk about, I guess, kind of take us through your pregnancy a little bit and then kind of what your experience has been.
My pregnancy wasn't so bad. It was pretty easy. I did get the motion sick, nauseous in the beginning, threw up a few times, but for the most part, as long as I ate before I felt sick, I was okay. I had some pretty bad swelling in my legs and feet in the second trimester, which was a good time. But otherwise, for the most part, it was pretty smooth sailing. And then labor and delivery was easy for me. I know it's not everybody's situation, but for me, it was relatively easy and quick. And I actually didn't even know I was going to have him when I did, because I had a doctor's appointment on Wednesday and they told me I was not having him anytime soon. And then that night I went into labor. And so I didn't know I was in labor, and it paced around my house, which actually helped move him down. And we ended up going in at like 6 a.m. and I had him at 3. So
wow,
it was relatively quick. I did get an epidural. That was nice. I got to take a nap and hang out. And then my doctor came in and we pushed for about an hour and there he was.
Wow. So this is gonna sound super ignorant, but basically the labor slash delivery. So the delivery is like the physical pushing and the
Mhm.
like the effort portion. And then the labor is the portion where you're like dilating and like basically having all the contractions leading up to. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes. So
I just
you dilate to 10 centimeters, and at 10 centimeters, you start pushing.
gotcha. Yeah, I figure, but like I just like never confirmed that with anyone. So here we are. Doing it live. Well, Christina, how far along are you now?
I'll be 30 weeks tomorrow.
How do you feel?
So it's kind of one of those weird things. Like I know I'm pregnant. I'm like very obviously very pregnant. And like I've seen the sonograms, I feel I'm moving, but there are times where I just forget, like because I feel like I just like don't have a lot of symptoms right now, or I'm not really feeling it. Like I'll go in for a hug and like the first thing that like hits is my belly and I'm like, oh yeah. But no, I've been feeling pretty good for the most part. Like Mariah was saying, I definitely am experiencing swelling in my lower extremities. And, I always talk about tracking your weight and how it's a data point. So there were times where like the scale would like skyrocket like 2 or 3 pounds within a day. And I'm like, what is happening? And then I look down and I'm like, oh, I have no ankles. Like I'm holding on to water.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been feeling pretty good, but it's also kind of hitting me that like, oh, like I could potentially maybe go into labor at like any point from now until 40 weeks. Cause I was like, oh yeah, 40 weeks. Like I still have a couple more months. And then I was like, well, like I've been talking to a couple people and like, oh yeah, like I, delivered at 30 weeks. And one person was like, oh yeah, I delivered at like 34. And Kristen was like, oh, I delivered at 37. And I'm like, oh God.
It's coming.
So yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like, I don't really feel like, oh, I have all this time. I'm like, oh, we need to start doing some stuff now.
Yeah, the urgency has kicked in.
Yeah. But other than that, like just kind of trying to enjoy my last couple months without a kid. And yeah, but no, I'm feeling really good, all
Good,
things
good.
considered. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I know today, like talking about being fit as a new mom and just all the challenges of being a new mom with Mariah, because she's the only one that is currently actually a parent. So I'm very interested to dive into these things because I know I hear about them all the time with my clients of like how these things work, how they affect us in trying to reach our fitness goals. So of course, tying it all back down to that sort of stuff. So, I mean, if we're ready to jump in, we can hit Mariah with the first question.
Yeah. Let's go for it.
Cool. So I guess the first thing that I am wondering about is what I hear about the most, which is time management. And I know, especially when like, so you have a 10-month-old, and so you're pretty much like now probably just getting past the point of like all of the trouble and all of the hassle and everything that comes with. So what has time management even looked like for you in the past 10 months since you delivered?
It's changed quite a bit. I went from, working out 2 hours a day, 6 days a week to, having to cut it down to 2 to 3 days a week to 30 minutes. And even that sometimes is a struggle. So it's hard. It's hard finding time to eat. It's hard finding time to sleep. It's hard finding time just for myself and even to shower. So that's been the biggest thing that, now it's easier as he gets older, but we never really had family by us. So it was just my husband and I and our kids. So it was very important to find time for myself to keep my sanity and to get myself out of the house and to the gym. So yeah.
So how did you find that time?
It did take a while, especially because the lack of sleep. My child, decided he was going to eat every 2 hours for the first 6 months of his life. So I'd have to time it where my husband got home and I would eat something quick, run to the gym, come back, feed my kid again, get him ready for bed, bath time, reading, and in bed. And then that after he went to bed, I had be my time to myself that was just relaxing. because that was important for me too, to spend time with my husband and hang out and do that kind of thing. And he helped a lot with meal prepping and that kind of thing, because we did have a few weeks that, I mean, I could hardly find time to eat. I couldn't, my son did not want to be put down. So having to just be able to throw food in the microwave to eat it quickly was extremely helpful for time management.
Yeah.
Rather than having to sit there, plan a meal, and then come up with everything. It was just like, I don't even have to think about it. Let me just microwave this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess like some good perspective, I think, because I don't even think I really know this in depth, or at least not as much as in depth as Christina would, or you would, obviously, but kind of where were you in your fitness journey, like before delivery, before, you know, even pregnancy, and like what kinds of things were you doing? Like, did you track macros? Did you, like you mentioned the time you were spending at the gym, which is definitely a lot. And then how has like those habits specifically, how have those shifted?
They, well, they shifted a lot. My life is honestly nothing like it used to be, which is crazy to say. And it's not in a bad way. It's just, it's very different.
Yeah.
And all through pregnancy, first trimester, I ate whatever, literally whatever I could stomach eating. And I still don't think I was eating enough because I wasn't gaining any weight. And then the second trimester, once I started feeling better, I started tracking macros. And that really, really helped me make sure I was eating enough, make sure I was focusing on what I was eating to help my little guy grow. And I tracked all the way through until I gave birth. So it really helped a lot. And then after delivery, we had a meal prep company with some food, and then my husband would make stuff too. I highly recommend making stuff ahead of time, because that would have been very helpful. And we didn't, but I recommend it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so there are a couple people I follow on Instagram that have just recently had kids. And one of the things that, or I guess like a strategy that they've implemented, is they had parents come and they've made meals ahead of time. So like freezer meals, like whether it would be dinners or just snacks or things like that. And that like really, really helped as far as just being able to like grab things and go. And then I know too, it is nice, like if you do have family and friends, that they'll drop by and like bring meals or something like that. But yeah, having things ahead of time, I feel like makes a really big difference.
Yeah, definitely. And like a lot of meal prep companies now are like super popular. So I feel like if that's going to be a convenience you pay for, like it's probably really worth it for new moms where it is really a priority, especially because like at least the meal prep company that we use right now, like sometimes I'm like, I can't eat these meals because there's too much protein in each one. But like if I were struggling, like you described you were, Mariah, I'm like, I could probably use 60 grams of protein in a sitting right here. So like that kind of stuff could probably be super helpful, I think.
Even just having snacks ready to go, and for me, weighed out and measured, was super helpful.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what you said about like tracking macros through the pregnancy and through all of that, because like I've heard obviously a bunch of different things, and the certification that you did it too, right? Yeah, so that we all have done, it's like it kind of recommends against tracking or assigning numerical values to things, which like I get, because it's like you do need to listening to your body first, and you do need to like make sure that you're not just ignoring those signals for the sake of hitting a calorie goal or a macro goal. But on the other hand of things, it's like if you are feeling okay and like there aren't these huge aversions or like big issues with nausea, a lot of times I feel like, especially with what you guys have described, you know, having less of an appetite per sitting because, you know, there's less room in your stomach, like not being able to stomach as much food at one time. It's like, okay, well then how do we know that we're getting enough food in? And so like tracking, sometimes I know with the few clients that I've helped through pregnancy, they actually, again, preferred to have some kind of a guideline there. I know one of my clients I'm thinking of in particular, she really found it helpful to have a calorie minimum and a protein goal. And that's all we did the whole time. So it wasn't like rigid, like, oh, let's restrict these things, but it was like, let's make sure we hit at least here on these kind of metrics. And then if you go over that, like, listen to your body, your hunger, your fullness with that, but feel free. Right. So I think it's interesting how like different personalities can take different habits and approaches with that.
I did have days where I mean, I'd eat a little bit more because I was still hungry. And I'd have days where, I mean, I did feel stuffed, but I knew I needed to get enough, because even I gained 25 pounds my entire pregnancy. And I actually had a point in the middle where my doctor said I needed to gain more. And I was already eating 2,500 calories, which is way more than I've ever eaten. So I just knew I had to eat even more. So otherwise, there's no way I would have been eating enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've also heard too, it's like I had one person I knew who worked at the gym that I worked at, like back in the day when I was training people in person. She's had a few kids, but she was always super hardcore with her pregnancy. She would train like the whole way through. And she would always preach that like pregnancy is like the best time to reverse diet. Like it's the best time to get your calories like way up there and just like see how your metabolism adapts, because it's just going to benefit your baby. Obviously, if you have the mental bandwidth to do that, of course, but like it's just going to benefit you eating more. And then when it's time for you to, like, let's say you do want to go into a fat loss phase postpartum, it's like your metabolism is in a place where it's really set to do that. So I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
And then I think it's also really helpful too, if you're breastfeeding, to be eating enough and having that supply.
Yes.
So I think that's a really big thing too. And so, yeah, you made a really good point where being pregnant is one of the best times to reverse diet implement. So that is one of the reasons why it could be a good idea to track your food intake, whether you're working with a coach or not, just to be able to slowly work your calories up and do it in a controlled manner, so you're not gaining a whole bunch of weight. But one of the things that you made me think of is I had someone who reached out to me in the DMs who's recently pregnant, and she's in I think she was, at this point we were talking, 10 weeks pregnant. And she was like, I really want to hire a coach because I want to have a healthy pregnancy and have someone like help me mentally, because as we know, pregnancy takes a lot on your body. And so she was like, I'm really struggling. And like, how did you cope with like the weight gain and seeing your body change? And so I was talking with her about some of those things. And she's like, I really want to hire a coach, but I don't want to feel like I'm wasting my money, because right now at this point, I'm eating like whatever I can. And I told her, I was like, the first trimester is usually just about surviving. So like whatever you can eat, like don't feel guilty about it. Like if you can stomach it, like if it helps you feel like not nauseous. Like I know that there were a couple mornings where I literally ate a whole sleeve of like saltine crackers because that was the only thing that sounded appealing and settled my stomach. So if anyone is recently pregnant and that's how you're feeling and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine tracking calories, don't worry about it. Second trimester is coming soon and you will feel better. But that's typically kind of the advice that I give. And of course, as we always do, it's every client is going to be different and kind of what works best for them and their goals and how they're doing throughout their pregnancy. And that could change. You could start tracking and track all the way through your second trimester, and then you get that second wave of nausea in your third, and you need to just try to have a minimum calorie intake. So whatever it is, I mean, whatever you can try to, I guess, strategize with a coach or someone else just to figure out what works best for you.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. What you said about the person that reached out to you, where it's like, oh, I don't want to waste my money on coaching. And, I've had this conversation with someone where it was just like, I don't want to waste my money on coaching when like my goal is to lose fat or get smaller. And I feel like it just wouldn't be, working towards that. But it's really like, what would the pregnancy look like without that kind of guidance is really what I try to like look at it from, because it's like, if this person is overall doing fine and like maybe they don't need the help and they are getting themselves to eat enough, like maybe it's not quite so much a problem. But if, someone's really having struggles with accountability and they can't get themselves to eat enough, or like they really want to maintain some kind of an exercise routine, but they aren't doing it, it's like, well, like, would you be learning the skills that you could take with you into a fat loss phase? Then yes, that's worth it. Right. And it's like, it kind of breaks my heart a little bit, because as women, we can often get so centered on like the postpartum weight loss. So I'm just going to wait until like after to start this journey. And I'm sure like if we do like a specific like lifting and pregnancy episode soon, that like it could be one of the most important things that you do within your pregnancy to stay active. Mariah, you during your pregnancy, were you still working out regularly?
Yeah, pretty regularly. Not the first trimester, not much, but the second and third, I stayed working out usually 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And then I also was still serving waitressing.
Okay.
So that was keeping me on my feet and busy.
Yeah. Okay. So very active pregnancy. And I mean, honestly, like I could definitely make the assumption that your delivery being as easy as it was, like, has a lot to do with that. So it's like, do you want to put yourself through such a like painful, long delivery process, or can you kind of take steps now in those early phases? So, I think taking different approaches to look at like, what can accountability do for you? What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, it sounds kind of crazy, but actually, I think mind muscle connection really helped push. So I think that made a huge difference too, because I know people push for a long time, and especially the epidural, you can't feel anything. And I mean, I pushed for just under an hour, and I felt like I could feel it the whole time, that I knew I was pushing where I needed to push. So I think learning how to lift weights and properly connect your mind to your muscle that you're currently lifting, and I think that helped a lot.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So there are so many mom pages that I follow now. And one of them, it's just so interesting because again, I think that before I got pregnant, and a lot of people probably have this same assumption. It's like, you see the woman like on her back, like screaming in pain, like delivering, and you just think like, that's what everyone does. But the more you get into it, you're like, oh, actually there are so many different positions that you can labor in. There are so many different strategies. Like you can deliver on your hands and knees. Like you can, like there's counter pressure. And then another technique that I saw is like, you have like a towel or something and you're like pulling. And sometimes doing that like can help with delivery, like if you're pushing and pulling at the same time. So being able, like Mariah was saying, is like being able to engage your lats and like, so it was just so fascinating to me. So it's like, if you have never lifted weights in your entire life and they're like, oh, pull, like engage your lats. And you're like, well, what are those?
Yeah.
But one of the things I was going to say is I had, one of my clients, she had 2 babies before working with me. And she had this assumption that like, oh, if I just eat whatever, like the weight is just going to fall off postpartum. Like that's just kind of the assumption that she had. And so she and I started working together at 4 months. And she was like, obviously I didn't lose weight when we were working together, because again, like you were saying, most people want to work with a coach for that phase. But she was like, afterwards, like I just, throughout my pregnancy, she's like, I felt more controlled with my nutrition. I felt like I did a much better job, which helped me mentally afterwards, just knowing I had done such good work prior. And then the recovery afterwards, she was like, was just night and day compared to my first 2, because I had been active. And she was like, so I know that helped me tremendously with my recovery. And I was already in this position where I had been working out, like, so I felt stronger and I just felt like a better mom postpartum. And she was like, and so all that work that I would have originally thought was like a waste of money, she was like, put me in just such a better position now. And she was like, I'd recommend it to anyone. So I love what you said about like, there are so many things that you can take away from that time working with the coach and apply it postpartum and make that journey a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because of all the challenges postpartum that I'm sure we're going to get into.
Yeah.
So we talked about time management. You mentioned sleep in there. As we know, sleep is so important for fat loss, energy, performance, all of those things. So yeah, what did sleep look like for you postpartum?
Yeah, non-existent. But I mean, I was just feeding him so much and I was trying to sleep in between there. But even at night, I'd go to bed when he'd go to bed at 9, but he'd still wake up every 2 hours for me. And I know other people get, a little luckier and get some longer stretches of sleep, but just sleeping when he slept was huge. And I mean, I even took naps with him during the day and would try to catch up as much as I can. And then it was probably around 5 or 6 months when he hit 4 hours of sleep in a row, which was amazing. And then probably 7 or 8 months, he hit sleeping through the night, 12 hours. So that was amazing.
I bet. Wow. So like what kinds of, I mean, was there anything that you kind of tried to do in the moment, or was it kind of just like figure it out, survival through those first few months, or like did you have any tactics that you tried?
The first few months were survive. And he wouldn't nap literally without me. He had to nap on me. So that's kind of was my key, like, oh, okay, I'll take a nap too. And then more when my husband got home, I'd kind of pass him off. So I had me time. And as well, especially the first few months, I probably didn't work out again till 8 weeks or 10 weeks even. And they approve it usually around 6 weeks, but I needed to catch up on sleep and catch up on me time and that kind of thing. So I prioritized that instead, and then finally started working out and making that work, and then still trying to go to bed early and doing whatever I could to get sleep.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, I think it's important though that you listened to what you felt like you needed.
Mhm.
And it wasn't like, oh, well, I hit the 6 week mark, so therefore I have to get back into the gym. And you
Yeah.
didn't feel guilty. You were like, no, I need sleep. Like
Yeah.
that is my number one concern. And also myself, like making myself a priority and doing like that self-care. So I think that was really important that you were able to kind of like in not feeling like, oh, well, this is something I have to do because I reached this milestone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was huge. I feel like, especially once you get farther and farther into it, 3 months in, 4 months in, it's like deciding what do I need in this moment? What do I need today? Can I go to the gym tomorrow instead of today? If I need to catch up on my sleep or do something with my child, then just prioritizing days and times and everything to get what I need in the moment.
Yeah. So it sounds like you, one of your keys to like being as successful as possible is really kind of like staying present and like really like focusing on like right here today and like what can I do right now, instead of worrying about like, am I going to get all 3 workouts in for the week, or am I going to nail my nutrition all week or whatever. It's just like today, like what can I do right now? It's funny because it parallels so much with like how we speak to any client to be successful is like, stop focusing on where you want to be in 6 months, 9 months. I think a lot of new moms, and I can't speak from personal experience, but at least with working with a few, like there's a lot of pressure postpartum to like be a certain way, lose a certain amount of weight, do a certain thing. And so it's like, oh, I want to be at this point, 6 months postpartum, I want to be back to my pre-baby body or whatever it is. I feel like a lot of times putting that kind of pressure and focus on yourself can like take away from like actual actions that you might be able to take in the moment.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like I do feel like staying healthy through my pregnancy did help a lot postpartum. So I think it's actually really important to start early, I mean, even if you're trying to conceive, getting a coach and being ahead of it helps a lot, to feel better about where you're at postpartum and be able to focus on your child instead of your body.
Yeah. Christina, you look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, I like thought of something and then I had a notification on my watch and I looked down and the thought's gone.
Oh no.
Shoot, I wanted to talk about your relationship with your husband. Can I say his name or no?
Yeah.
Okay, Ben. I know how I am, so I just want to make sure. So with Ben, something that we were talking about, was it last night or this morning? I can't remember, but having that communication with him and how that really made a big difference for what you were able to do is like, as far as like, here, have him, I need to go to the gym.
Yeah.
I had quite a few meltdowns to him because overtired and watching him honestly just kind of live his life and be able to do things. And I mean, if our child cried, he'd ask me, oh, is he hungry? And then it's my duty to feed him. So, and I breastfed, up to 10 months, and now it's complicated, but so it was my job to feed him, and the primary caregiver, and I knew what he wanted usually when he cried. So that really was hard to watch my husband leave, go to work and come home, go to the gym, kind of live his life and eat his warm food. And I was taking care of our child, and it was pretty rough watching him do that. And so finally, I mean, we had quite a few talks, and I said, I need more help. I need more me time. I just need, I don't know what I need, but I need help. And so we worked together and kind of figured out a time and a schedule for me to hand him off to my husband and let me leave for a second. And even if it's just 30 minutes, go to the gym and take a second for myself to breathe and live.
Yeah.
So I remember what I was going to say. So I love what you said. It's like, I was struggling and I may not have even known what I needed, but you made that known to him. Mm-hmm. Like, this is important to me. I have these priorities and I need help. So that is something that I see a lot with moms, where they have this guilt of putting themselves first. And it's difficult to reach out and ask for help because, again, I feel like with our current society, we feel like we have to be super moms, that we can do everything. We can do the grocery shopping, we can do the laundry, we can take care of the house, we can bounce back after our pregnancies, and like everything is supposed to be easy and we can handle it. And then to be able to admit and say, no, I need help. And to be able to have that open and honest conversation with your husband, I think is really, really good. And that's something that I have conversations with my current clients, and they will start to say, I feel more confident to be able to have that conversation with my husband and say, no, I do need to put myself first. Like, or having that conversation of, hey, I need to go to the gym too. How can we work this out where we can both do what we need to do? So I really like that you were able to, again, have that conversation with him.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, that type of communication, unfortunately, is rare, regardless of, new mom, pregnant, just living life, even like, and not even having kids, like being able to communicate those needs and being like, listen, like, if I'm going to make my health and my fitness a priority in this phase of life, whatever that phase of life is, whether it's being a new mom, whether it's starting a new career, adjusting to a new schedule, it's one of the most important things that, like, if you cohabitate with someone, it's like, they have to obviously know, they have to be bought into it. And it's so much, I feel like it's so much more avoided than like you would otherwise assume. It's like, I feel like a lot of times clients, especially women, will be like, okay, I'm starting this fitness journey. Like, this is all me. I'm just going to keep it to myself, and it's going to be a me thing. I'm not even going to tell my boyfriend or my husband, because like, I just want to, I want to do this for me. And that comes from a good place, right? It's like, you don't want to burden others with your struggles or like make them feel like they have to join you or anything. But it's like, without that communication, it's like there's one less level of accountability, like one less layer there, because like the person that you live with isn't going to, help you in making those decisions. And then like, there's just no awareness. Like, it's like, oh, like, you want to go get ice cream, honey? And you're like, oh shoot, I didn't tell him that I'm doing this thing with my diet. I don't want ice cream. And then it could cause like other conflicts because it's just not openly addressed. So I feel like, especially when like time is so thin, you're really just fighting for like 30 minutes with yourself. If that's not expressed, it could honestly just make or break managing your fitness within, being a new mom postpartum. So I love, like Christina said too, I love that you were able to just like voice that and say it when you needed it and not let it kind of drag out.
Yeah. So another thing that you just made me think of is I have a client who, again, and I'm speaking to a particular one because we have so many current stories and current check-ins. She is one of the funniest. I love her check-ins. They're so funny. She's so animated. I wish I could read some of her responses because they're just, she just makes me laugh out loud. But she was saying that, she was able to, again, have these conversations with her husband and let him know what her goals were, what she was trying to do. And so that was not only when it came to the gym or cardio, but it was also food. And so she was saying, he'd come home with cookies, and from him, or from like his point of view, it's, I'm doing this because I care and I want to show that I love you. And like, I was thinking of you, but her thing is like, no, like no cookies, like get them out of the house. And so she was able to have that conversation, or it's like, they're out driving around and he's like, oh, hey, I'm hungry. Do you want to stop and get fast food? And she was like, being able to say, hey, you know what my current goals are? I'd love to just go home instead and let's just eat at home. And him being like, oh, okay. So by her making her goals known and a priority, she's able to put her foot down a lot easier than it was before. So she said that, again, she's finding her voice and finding that it's just becoming more and more natural for her to like put herself first, because I think some of the things that we've talked about before that is really difficult as a mom to say, I need to get my workout in. I need to make sure that I have a hot meal. Like I need to make sure that I have time to shower. And it's difficult because we are caring so much about everyone else in our family, but realizing that if you are making yourself a priority, like you show up better as a mom, you show up better as a wife, you show up better as a, family member. And it kind of just trickles over into, again, feeling like I'm just going to resent everyone and not ask for help or not do anything. So I really like that.
Yeah. Oh my God. You made me like, I was going to laugh because you said the husband was like bringing home cookies or whatever. And I have a client who like, I know she's going to listen to this, and her boyfriend just started working with our team as well. But he works right next to like a Crumble cookies, like the big, like pound cookies or whatever. And he like would bring them home, and she's like trying to like get ready for contest prep this upcoming year. And like,
oh no.
And so she was like, Marissa, like, I need help. Like, how do I not accept or not eat these cookies that he's bringing home for me? Because like, I know it's coming from such a good place, but like, I don't need these in my life. And I was like, what if you just like asked, like, and transparently just asked, like, could you express that love by bringing home something else that's like not like edible food or like flowers or whatever, or a card. And so she goes back to him and she suggested those things, flowers, card. And she was like, you could like Venmo me, like, and I was like, and then when I was talking to him, because he was getting onboarded to the team, he was like, yeah, like Hannah told me like I could, oh shoot, I mentioned her name. Shane, edit this out. 37. But she told me, so I was on the phone with him, and because he was being onboarded to the team, and he was like, yeah, like she said, like I could Venmo her. And I was like, that was not my idea. Not my idea. Everything else was, but he was like, no, I totally get it though. I was just like, I'm not going to Venmo you. Like, it was funny.
Just pay me with your love.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's hilarious. Yeah. So I know she's going to listen to this. She'll probably play it for him too. So they'll get a kick out of it.
She's probably going to be like, can you just like bring me home coffee, or like,
oh, coffee's such a good one.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like, again, it's letting them know and having that conversation, and it can be tough. And again, because it's like, he's not bringing home cookies because he's trying to sabotage you. Like he's doing it because he's just, thinking about you, wants to show appreciation. But again, like having just everyone aligned with the current goals just makes it so much easier.
Way easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I think, one thing we talked about when we were like, before we got on air and started recording was like, Mariah, like what things are you really struggling with, or what did you struggle with, especially in those early months? And I think one of the biggest adjustments is just like how literally your life just changes. Like it just completely changes. It's not bad. It's just different. I think that's something that a lot of new moms fail to grasp as well, is like, we can't be labeling these things as good or bad, but like, it's different. Your life is just going to be different. There's going to be so many joys that come from it, but at the same time, it's not going to be the same as before. I think oftentimes we hold ourselves to the standard of like, I must go back to the way my life was before, but now I just have a kid in the mix. Like it's not really how it works. So like tell us like, what is it like to like literally have a human being relying on you, like having your life revolve around that? Like what kind of struggles does that come with?
I just was talking about it with Christina yesterday because I was trying to do some work and I just have to shut my computer sometimes and tend to him. And so things get interrupted, change, the schedule changes. I eat a lot of cold food, a lot of cold coffee. So, switching to cold brew helped with that one. But he comes first always. So my entire life now revolves around him. So anything that I want to do, I just have to prioritize time. My workouts are a lot shorter now, and I get in, I get out, I do what I need to do, prioritizing food. And it's a little easier now that he's actually eating because he just eats what we eat. So making sure, and it's funny because I feel like I put more chemicals and things into my body. And now with him, I'm like, oh, he can't eat that. So I guess I should probably cut that out too. So we're eating different. My gym time's different, just prioritizing everything, every little bit of time I have, getting myself prepared for the day, meal prepping, and being prepared to stop what I'm doing immediately to attend to him and then pick it back up later is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So I know one of the things, Mariah, that you and I were talking about was when you get to Phoenix, you're going to have your family, which is going to be super, super helpful. But not only that, you had mentioned that your brother goes to a gym and they have daycare. So with the limits, like what, 2 hours?
2 hours.
Yeah. So she was like, I think I'm going to even if I finished my workout an hour, I'm going to bring my laptop and work because I know I have an hour of time that
free daycare.
Yeah. Free daycare.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's not free, but
yeah. But
that's
something
awesome
to take advantage of. So I know that a lot of moms will find gyms that have that amenity, and that's super helpful because again, you're not having to feel like, oh, I need to dump this on my husband as soon as he gets home from work. It's like I can go to the gym during the day, have daycare, and still find that time and not feel rushed or anything like that. So I feel like that's another good strategy too.
Yeah. What's usually the minimum age for those daycares?
I think they said it was at this one, I think just a couple weeks, 6 weeks, that 6 week mark.
Oh my gosh.
But I know not all of them are like that. A lot of them are probably 3 months, 4 months, probably.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe even
That's
6
crazy.
months.
Yeah. That was going to be my guess. I was going to say 6 months, but it's cool that exists, because if it's 6 weeks, it's if someone really wanted to get back into it right when they got that approval, it's okay, I guess you can. Very cool. So I think, one thing I think will be really valuable for a lot of our listeners is, no matter what time they're coming to tune into this episode, whenever it's relevant to them in their lives, okay, we've got this person, they are a new mom and they are really just struggling maybe in those first 4, 6, 8, maybe 10 weeks of postpartum, mentally, physically. How would you help somebody just get started? Just get going with the right habits, get going with the routine, basically starting from ground zero.
Before pregnancy is ideal.
Yeah.
But even if it's during pregnancy, I know my sister-in-law asked her doctor, she hadn't been working out before, and she asked if she should start, and they were like, oh, have you been doing anything? She said no, and they told her not to do anything.
Yeah.
So and in my opinion, obviously it's a doctor, so it's different, but she could have been doing light stuff, walking, still staying healthy. And so she kind of just threw it all away, and now is in a spot where she wanted to lose more weight afterwards. And versus, I stayed healthy throughout my pregnancy, and it was just a little bit easier for me. So that's a huge thing. Just just go, just do it. Start, even if it's 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, and watching, not necessarily watching what you eat, because I know that's hard during pregnancy, but just being more conscious of eating healthy things, not just for yourself and the weight, but you're feeding your child too. So just being conscious of that.
Yeah, no, I love what you said there. And I think, especially what you said about nutrition, it's like, okay, maybe let's not like watch what we eat or try to be restrictive, but it's just like, I was having a conversation earlier, like just with our coaching team on my side. And, sometimes I think as coaches where we have all the tools, the macros, the refeeds, the diet breaks, the meal timing, like all these nuanced details that like at the end of the day, like really only like the 1%ers use those things. But like, I think a lot of times we undervalue just like mindfulness of like really understanding like what's in our food and like what we're putting into our bodies. So a lot of times, like we have our clients, like I know you do it too, like collect data first week or so. A lot of times, like new clients that come in, like what we work on is just let's just continue that. Like, and so if you're someone who's like, oh, macros sound intimidating, that sounds like a lot of stress, like a lot of work, like just like literally write down what you eat every day. Like have a food journal or like put it into MyFitnessPal, but don't give yourself any goals. Like literally just like watch and look and pay attention and learn, because like most things will probably self-correct if you pay attention and like just start to understand. Like I was working with someone really close to me and I was just kind of like giving her some tips. I was like, hey, start doing this. Just track and just see what's in your food. She self-corrected so much in like 2 or 3 weeks of just tracking with no goals, just like looking at it. And so I think we underestimate the value of mindfulness and just like really like paying attention, because it doesn't take extra work, right? It doesn't take all this extra planning. It doesn't take all these extra steps. It doesn't even take meal prep. Like if you just observe what you're already doing, like you can often find so many solutions within that just from paying attention. So that's something that I think could be really helpful, like starting with getting started with nutrition. If it is postpartum or late in pregnancy, when you just feel overwhelmed, like that's something really easy that you could do.
Yeah. Another thing that you made me think of is, again, so often as women, I feel like we're like, well, what can I take away? Like, what can I remove? And so it's like, oh, well, let me remove ice cream or let me remove soda. And while that's coming from a very good place, and I think it is, something maybe to work on in the future, it's like, well, what can we add in? What can we add in? A serving of vegetables? Can we add in a serving of fruits? If you're pregnant, like, can I add in some omega-3s? Like, can I add in salmon once a week or twice a week? Or, so things like that. I think it's easier to come from than to like, what can I restrict or what do I need to cut out? And like you said, it's like, it's a little bit easier, just something, let me just add this into my daily routine that I'm already doing. That's going to be like a pretty good payoff. And it's like Mariah was saying, like thinking about like, I'm not just eating for myself anymore. Like I'm eating for someone else. And I do think that actually has a lot to do. And some people will start to clean up their diet a little bit. And because there is, on the other hand, or on the other side of things, the whole idea of like, oh, well, I'm eating for two, so I can eat whatever I want now.
Yeah.
Which is a recipe for disaster. But yeah, just kind of like, what are some easy little things that I can do that doesn't take a whole lot of planning or mental capacity and will be an easy behavior change.
Right. Absolutely. And like one thing, especially with protein. So actually my coach's wife is pregnant again, and they were testing her protein levels and they were super low. And so they were like, you need to get more protein in or whatever. So like, that's her main focus. Obviously she is married to a coach, a bodybuilder, like that's a pretty natural transition for someone like her. But one thing that like we'll do with a lot of our clients, and like, especially when someone's going through changes like pregnancy or postpartum, it's like your mental capacity's already so filled to the brim. So like, how can we just like get someone thinking about doing something, like whether it's a vegetable or a protein goal? Like protein, especially a lot of moms lack as they are breastfeeding, as they are, developing a baby. So like how do we just get someone thinking about eating more protein? Like not like a number of grams, but like, I don't even care if it's 80-20 beef, or like if it's chicken sausage instead of like, our typical, protein sources. Like, let's just think about like, how do we work in some kind of protein and like make it be a part of what we think about throughout the day. And then if we're like overshooting our fat or whatever, we can look at that and be like, okay, let's kind of see what we can do there. Maybe we do start to look at leaner protein sources, but like from the beginning, it's like, can you eat a 4-ounce burger? Like that counts, right? And I think we, again, as coaches, because I know we have an audience of people just living a healthy lifestyle, men, women, and then we have, a small portion of those as coaches or personal trainers too, really breaking it down to like, how do we, like, beyond like all the details and the fun things that we love to work on with people, like how do we just get someone thinking about the right things so that it really does become a habit?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it's kind of like, okay, if I have like grilled cheese for lunch or something like that, it's like, well, can I throw some ham on?
Yes.
Like just being like a little bit more conscious. And then it's kind of like, okay, well, if maybe I'm tracking my food and I realize that, oh, I threw some ham on, but it's really not a whole lot to make it significant. Can I add a little more? Or like you said, with the burger, like 4 ounces is actually like a really good serving size, especially for a woman. Or like, if you start your morning with coffee, well, can you throw some collagen in it? Can you throw in some protein coffee? And it's just like little things that eventually add up over time. So I think it's a really good point that you said. It's all about trying to make it a habit and then fine tuning, right? So it's like, oh, okay, well, I've been doing 80-20, but I'm overshooting my fat. So can I do, 85-15, or there's some things I can do throughout the day to kind of tweak it a little to make it more optimal. But again, it's like, we're not trying to be 100% perfect right off the bat. It's like, let's just start somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's hard, especially in the first trimester. A lot of women have protein aversions. And that's one of them. And again, it's the craziest thing, especially Mariah, like coming from a bodybuilding background, to thinking that that's not going to be something that you would struggle with, to being like, oh my God, I don't want anything to do with chicken or beef or anything. And then just being like, I literally, like, the only thing that's appealing is like buttered noodles. So yeah, it's very interesting. So I think while being conscious of things that you should do, at the same time, it's like, oh, well, I just need to survive or I just need to listen to my body. So trying to, again, find that like fine line between, well, do I have buttered noodles for every single meal, or can I try to add in like some amount of protein, or like, could I even switch to like a protein pasta? Like small little things like that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like a big part of that, especially for people who maybe are living the lifestyle already, is like adjusting your expectations, whether that's pregnancy, postpartum, right? It's like maybe you have been tracking macros, hitting protein goals, doing all these things. Maybe you have your baby, you realize you have no time to think about that anymore. It's like adjusting the expectations of like, what is my new normal? What can I expect of myself? What's realistic? And like, my head's in all these different places now that I'm taking care of another human being. I'm trying to find maybe 30 minutes for myself. Maybe it doesn't make sense to plan out my macros every day, but like, how can I focus on like just getting in protein, or like making sure to place that meal prep service order? Like it's literally like, how can I do those small things that I think can help you guys get started if you're in this position where you're making that huge, huge life adjustment that, I mean, I don't think we can even do it justice, but can at least try to advise or give tips on from Mariah's experience and ours with clients.
Yeah. And I really, really love what you said about managing expectations, right? So it's like, again, a lot of people are like, oh, okay, 6 months or 6 weeks, I'm good. Like, I'm going to be in the gym all the time. Like, this is going to be such an easy like thing. And I'm just going to, like whatever it is that they have. And then it's being able to like, yeah, I need to like rework my new reality and figure out, okay, well, what is actually realistic for me, and being okay with that. and not feeling
That's the
like a
hardest
failure.
part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not feeling like a failure because you see, some super mom on Instagram who you feel like is managing 5 kids and you're like, I can barely juggle one. But again, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know if they have a nanny, if they have, their mom or dad that comes over for a few hours a day, whatever it
Yeah.
might be. So I think it's really important to be realistic and be able to be okay with readjusting your expectations.
Especially the recovery too. Everybody's recovery is so different. And I mean, I honestly, I had a relatively easy recovery, but I know I'm lucky, and I know people that haven't, and it's a lot on your body. So giving yourself that time and grace to get back to it is important.
I will also
I love
challenge
that.
you and say, yes, you are definitely, there's probably some luck involved, genetics, but you also took care of a lot of the variables that make that more probable and make it easier for you. So, just continuing to rehash like, hey, what can these women do, like take personal responsibility over, so that it's not just victim mentality. Oh, I had the worst recovery from my pregnancy. It's what can I do during, before, after, that's going to set me up for success, for this pregnancy. And then, if you have more kids down the road, like how's that going to be better and easier than the first?
Mhm.
So many good takeaways. So I feel like we could probably talk for another couple hours, but I know that we should probably wrap it up here. But if there's anyone who wants wants us to dive into these topics further, we'd be more than happy to. But Mariah, I wanted to ask you, because we ask all of our guests, something, I don't know if you want to frame it from a mom's point of view, it might be helpful for the episode. But what would be your number one tip to have a sustainable, healthy lifestyle? Like, what would be the number one thing you'd recommend to someone? It could be a mom or from a more broad perspective.
To put yourself first. It's hard as a mom, and I do have to obviously put my child up there, but if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm in no position to take care of anybody else. So for my mental health, my physical health, everything, always putting myself first is going to make me a better mom.
I love
I
it.
love that. Yeah.
It was brief. It was good.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Well, Mariah, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We really appreciate it, and having your perspective as a first-time mom, because I know I will need it here soon. I'll probably go back and listen. Yeah, I'm gonna probably go back and listen to this episode. But Marissa, maybe not now, but in the
I'll
future.
come back in a decade.
Yeah. But again, we thank you so much for being on. And for you guys, listeners, we hope that you really enjoyed this and got some good takeaways. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. You can find both of us on Instagram. You can find me at Christy Lynn Fit, and Marissa's at Marissa Roy Fitness. Mariah, where can they find you right now?
Right now at Mariah Varichak Fit. Hopefully just Mariah Varichak soon if I can get back in. So
long story, but don't give your personal information out to someone on Instagram. Another little takeaway if you made it this far. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you back next week. And first episode of 2022, so super exciting. And this is a new season. We should have addressed that at the very beginning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here we are.
Well, super exciting. See you guys next week.